Every single time that there is a new DLC or a big update for a Street Fighter 6, the discourse around the game is exactly the same. Why are we not receiving significant balance changes or system updates? And why are we essentially playing the same fighting game that got released almost 3 years ago? And in this video, I want to go over of what I think could be the future of Street Fighter as a series and how it connects with other Capcom fighting game titles as well. We're gonna go all the way from today to the Street Fighter 40th anniversary on 2027. And of course, take into account that this video is mostly a speculation. Do not understand it as news or facts. It is me putting my tinfoil hat over and actually trying to guess what's gonna happen with Street Fighter and other Capcom fighting games all the way until next year. So let's get into it. Oh, but before we start, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing if you want to see more content like this or you enjoy videos around fighting games, which is what we do over here. Thank you for your support, and now let's jump right into it. Okay, so the first thing that we have to talk about is Ingrid, and it's not because she's in a DLC or her trailer. This is actually related to the possibility that Ingrid as DLC on SF6 is a huge excuse in the lore of the game to maximize the crossover potential of the title and also other Capcom fighting games as well. In the case that you don't know about it, Ingrid is actually one of the most, if not the most strong character in the lore of a Street Fighter. She has like multi-dimensional powers, also even time travel from what I understand, and other stuff related to kind of like what a goddess would do. There's also even a prologue to the Street Fighter Cross Tekken game as a comic that shows Ingrid creating the Pandora, which is kind of like the lore reasoning behind why the crossover between Tekken and Street Fighter initially happened. Even though it is not canon, it's right there. So there's a lot of ways in which Ingrid as a character could be used in the lore of a Street Fighter 6 to open up the potential for a ton of crossovers with other fighting franchises, or even with specifically a new title or a new game that could be a connection between Capcom games and other fighting games. Now, if this ends up being the case, it's just endless possibilities for Capcom to do crossovers with guest characters on Street Fighter 6 and maybe new fighting games, because Ingrid can quite literally open up a portal and say, look guys, it's Morgan from Darkstalkers, Jin Kazama from Tekken, and a Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, and now they're a part of the Street Fighter world. See you soon. But there is one crossover that has been built upon already for a decent amount of time, and that is between Capcom and SNK.
This is gonna be fun.
And you can say, for what do you need Ingrid there if there's already connections between Street Fighter and Fatal Fury and Metro City and South Town? Well, the game that actually connects Capcom and SNK as a franchise is not related to Fatal Fury. Is related to the King of Fighters, and in many ways the public faces of the SNK side for games like Capcom vs SNK and Capcom vs SNK 2 are not Terry and Mai, they are Kyo and Iori. So there is still an opportunity to do another lore connection between SNK characters and Capcom ones in a Street Fighter 6 to use it as an excuse to put up a new Capcom vs SNK title. And another significant point to take into account is that Capcom highly likely has a lot of financial incentive to work with SNK, because SNK is owned by the Saudis, and at the same time that same group of people has put almost $1 billion on investment on Capcom stock, and they own around 10% of the company, and that's more than enough to influence their decision making and business strategy, and they are going to be very happy as an investment group that Capcom is working with one of the video game companies that is mostly owned by the Saudis. So there's not only previous collaborations, a new lore incentive to make the collab with Ingrid on the game, but also financial reasons and potential reward for making a game like Capcom vs SNK 3 and that title being successful. So don't be surprised at all if Season 4 of Street Fighter 6 has even more SNK guest characters, but specifically from the King of Fighters series. And now you're gonna ask yourself, so on that season is where Street Fighter is actually going to change and we're gonna get a ton of different updates for balance and system changes? No, I actually think that that's not gonna be the case, and the game is gonna keep being the same, at least until the Street Fighter 40th anniversary, and that's the topic that we're gonna move into right now. What I believe is gonna be the case is that Street Fighter 6 is gonna get a big revision by the end of 2026 or the start of 2027 as the first big event related to the Street Fighter 4th anniversary, and we are gonna get something like Super SF6. There is gonna be the moment in which the game is gonna change a ton. And there's nothing weird or new about this hypothesis or idea because it is what happens with every single Street Fighter. It happened with SF3 from New Generation all the way to Third Strike. It happened with regular SF4 to Ultra, and it also happened with SF5. So it is nothing crazy to think that the game is not gonna change that much until we get the Super Street Fighter 6 version of the game. And I believe that that is not going to happen on Season 4 necessarily because Ingrid comes out around the end of May or the start of June, and we could get, for example, the Season 4 trailer on Summer's Games Fest, and that is way too soon to get something like Super Street Fighter 6, taking into account that the 40th anniversary, such a big event, is only next year. There is no reason for Capcom to actually change the game now instead of waiting a bit more and doing it as a huge cultural event both in Japan and around Street Fighter as a series and its legacy. But the thing is, the Street Fighter 40th anniversary is probably gonna be such a big event that Super SF6 is not gonna be the only thing that's gonna happen or be related to it. And if we look at the 30th anniversary 1 decade ago, we got a new collection of games and also a re-release of a Street Fighter 2. So why would this anniversary in particular not receive a similar treatment? There is still a lot of games that need re-releases and a more premium version, like for example Third Strike or Street Fighter 4. We still don't have a premium rollback edition of Third Strike or Ultra SF4, and that could very easily happen next year during the 40th anniversary. And also, maybe if we can dream, we could get a collection of some of the more obscure Street Fighter games or versus games that are kind of like on the licensing limbo, like Tatsunoko vs. Capcom or the Street Fighter EX series. Those are very unlikely because of the licensing nightmare related to them, but it's still not impossible because Capcom clearly knows how to deal with those situations, and they have shown in the past with the Marvel vs. Capcom collection that it's possible to deal with these problems, even though the ones for those games could be even harder to resolve. But not impossible, in my opinion. Then also I would say that it is not impossible to get another version of Street Fighter 2. Like, Capcom always comes back to SF2. It is one of the most successful video games of all time, not only within the fighting game genre, and is very iconic. And if you do a revision of the game that is decent, it's going to sell well. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we get even a new Street Fighter 2, maybe for modern platforms with rollback and some sort of upgrade in comparison to the final challengers that we got to the Switch in the 30th anniversary. But what if I told you that even in addition to all of this, the pinnacle of the 40th anniversary for Street Fighter as a series and Capcom could actually be the release of Capcom vs. SNK 3, because Capcom vs. SNK is pretty much a Capcom IP. Even though it has SNK characters on it and some SNK mechanics, it has always been a Capcom fighting game, and it has always felt like a Street Fighter game that has SNK mechanics and characters. So I would not be surprised at all if the build-up of the 40th anniversary doesn't end with the Street Fighter in itself, but actually with the release of a new Capcom vs. SNK title. So there you go, people. That's kind of like my conspiracy theory of what could happen with Street Fighter as a series and also other Capcom fighting game titles. I didn't go into much detail about the case of Darkstalkers because I believe that Capcom vs. SNK 3 is for sure gonna happen first and before a new Darkstalkers, but I do have another video on the channel going over why I believe that Darkstalkers is gonna come back eventually, so you can check it out if you want. Let me know in the comments what you think is gonna be the future of Street Fighter and other Capcom fighting games. Like and subscribe if you want to support the channel. I would really appreciate it, especially if you enjoyed this video or you like content around fighting games. Thank you for your support, and see you on the next one. Take care.